You're listening to this episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a comment. It would greatly benefit the show. Hello and welcome to Movie Baiters with the Farx brothers. I'm Kirk.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Nick.
And we're here with Jeff Goldsmith, composer.
Hey.
We're going to be diving into Sinners. This would be the spoilers segment.
Spoilers.
Did the vampires have a point?
What point about what?
Hey, come on.
I mean, do vampires ever have a point?
Everlasting
Not inside
life.
them, because otherwise they'll be dead, right?
You're talking about steak?
Yeah, making a joke. Wow, that fell flat.
No. I think people are laughing at home right now. Real hard. Like someone just fell off the toilet laughing so hard.
I think they kind of had a point. I mean,
Ooh.
they did talk about unity and being a community, and they didn't specify, like, you know, we're going to be the superior race. So, I mean, they kind of had a point. They seemed all happy.
I mean, I certainly thought that there were, like, I don't know, KKK, like, undertones or something.
To the vampires?
Yeah.
No, they were fighting the KKK because they took the Klan's people and made them into vampires.
I guess what I'm saying is more of like a undertone element, you know? Like, I don't know. I thought they sucked. And I thought there were like aspects of them that were sort of like, I don't know, representative of that or something, you know?
So you know the way you were talking about different composers and how they might make thank you, contracts with contractors where they get everything from you and you just get that one payment. That to me reminds me of how the vampire, once you become part of the horde or whatever they called it, you get all the memories. The head vampire then shares in all the memories and you become a part of the hive. And so, hey, if you join this collective of vampires, then you will get all of these memories, but we will get all of your memories, and I want your music. What he says to the young boy, the protagonist, Miles is the actor's name.
Yeah, it's very drink the Kool-Aid. Yeah, totally. I mean, I certainly like those scenes where they're like standing outside of, you know, the place they're at, just kind of looking at them where it's like, we're cooler out here, you know? It's very drink the Kool-Aid.
They're trying to get inside.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying the perception is like, come join us, be with us. It's cooler in the headspace that we're at. It's cooler being a vampire, basically. Like, drink the Kool-Aid, you know?
Yeah, I don't think the vampires have a point, just so that I'm very clear on my opposition to the question I posed. I see them as corporate HR, and that is the most evil thing that exists. That's why, you know, people hate work usually, is the HR department going, no, we have to take this training. No, we have to do this. And yes, we're all one. We're a family. We're just about love here. No, we're not. Our fiduciary responsibility is to profit and to propagate, you know, getting more people. We're going to go eat your daughter if you don't come out here now.
For sure. For sure.
So they had to have had a goal.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure I felt like, you know, kind of throughout the whole movie, I felt, even if I didn't pick up on it, I knew I wasn't picking up on everything they were putting down. But unlike most movies, I felt like they at least had something they were trying to say, whereas most movies these days, they're just throwing out little bits that feel like good, like, you know, like if you're
buzzwords for the sake of buzzwords without actual thought behind them.
Well, like where words equate to like scenes that feel on their own, they feel meaningful, but if you assemble them into a whole, they don't assemble into a whole because they're just throwing. It's like if you're just picking fancy words out of a dictionary and throwing them at the wall. That's what a lot of movies do.
Yeah.
Like, oh, here's this scene that seems poignant. Here's this scene that seems heartfelt. Here's this scene that seems meaningful. But they never construct. They don't have a vision in their head of like those things coming together into a whole. This movie felt like it did. Like it knew what it wanted to say. I felt like I just wasn't picking up on it. Part of it was because I actually couldn't make the dialogue out sometimes.
Yeah, the accents are pretty strong.
Or
I
the
agree.
sound design.
Well, that was part of the reason I want to go see it again. And I naturally always sort of tune into the score, and sometimes when I tune into it too much, I stop paying attention to what's happening in the movie. And I know that happened a few times in Sinners because I was like really getting like brought into the music. The one thing about the vampires that I thought was a little weird was I just felt like the introduction of them felt odd.
The way he's running and you see him run up to something when there's like steam coming out, running up to the Klansman's home.
Yeah, well, it's just like suddenly we're like, oh, we're in a vampire movie now.
Yeah,
you know,
leaps.
like I felt like there could have maybe been a.
You don't know to the end of that scene, I'd argue.
Yeah, but still, it's like I feel like there could have been maybe a better way to sort of introduce the vampires. That was my only critique of the movie when I left it. Was like I felt like they introduced the vampires in sort of we're in a vampire movie now. You know,
if he hadn't just been smoking and he was just looking for help, that would have made a big difference, I think.
Yeah.
But it has to be smoking because he can't be in the sun.
Well, but then don't show him in an area where he has to be smoking. Just show him on the doorstep in the shade where he doesn't have to be smoking, and he's just someone who needs help. And then the person who's seeking help turns out to be a vampire, and then you ease into it more.
I was going to self-bait myself in the sense that you said the vampires have a clan vibe, and I now see it in the sense that, like, the point of joining the clan is, like, you're part of this tribe, right? Like, I have never really thought about joining the clan until this movie made me think about it, and, like, oh, well, you're all part of the Pointy Hat Club, so, you know, maybe that is similar to being a vampire. Like
But they don't discriminate. They're going after everybody, though. They're also going against...
The vampires
are going for everyone, yeah.
Yeah.
that's true. That's true. Yeah,
But
I
you can
mean,
still draw a parallel. Sorry.
no,
Yeah, you can,
I mean,
but-
I don't know. I felt like the vampires they were sort of representative of a lot of different things, you know?
Is it racism, or could it be other things, too?
Well, I think it's definitely other things too. I mean, I don't know. I thought the vampires I really hated the vampires in that movie. I feel like when I think back to like vampire movies, I feel like I don't usually hate the vampires all that much. It's like they're a vampire. It's kind of, you know.
Did you see Nosferatu?
Yeah.
When he's killing the little kids,
Yeah.
you hate him, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But like, I didn't hate the vampires in like From Dusk Till Dawn.
No, but that's like a pulpy movie where you're kind of going in for it's a roller coaster versus I went into this movie not exactly knowing I kind of knew, vampires are going to be a metaphor for racism or something. And I'm happy to have found out it's much deeper than that. And like, it's about the music business or the movie business, or, you know, because like all of that music from the 30s was taken from the black folks that originated it and then propagated to the broader, mostly white nation at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this stuff, I agree. It can be representative of whatever maybe you feel personally has been something that, like, takes over. You know, I know for me, like, right now, a big thought on my mind is, like, AI and AI music in films, right? And, Kyle, that you were like, oh, man, are we really going into this topic?
No, I think you're right, and it's something...
But like it spreads like a wildfire. Like that's the way this stuff works. Once it's introduced into sort of the ecosystem, it just like suddenly it becomes a part of everything, and then it's starting to take over things. So like, you know, that was something I was thinking about when I was watching the movie. Is like the vampires are like AI. It's just like it continues to take until there's nothing left to take anymore. You know?
Yes. No, I 100% agree with that metaphor. Before you went on that, I was thinking like, the vampires are a metaphor for religion, and now religion is used to kill people. Like I made this reference to Kirk this week, and it's like, religion is why India and Pakistan almost went to nuclear war last week, because 100 years ago the Hindus kicked the Muslims out of India, and then 100 years later it's like, hey, we both have nuclear weapons and yada yada. We're gonna, you know, And religion does that. You know, Kingdom of Heaven, the crusades between the Christians and the Muslims, and it's like, why are we killing all these people? And the Irish vampire says, oh yeah, Psalm 23, that is exactly what was said to my people when my land was being taken over by, you know, because the Irish were fucked over in the 20s and 30s by the potato famine and the invading forces from I think England? I don't know. And like the Irish at only 50 years prior could be paid less than black folks in the United States, specifically in New York, which if you've seen Gangs in New York,
Yeah.
they outline for you is like blacks can make 20 cents an hour, Irish can make 10 cents an hour, and this is like a sign posted on a business in the 1860s.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, especially with music in this movie, too, like, if you look at American music, and it really all goes back to the blues music, right? And a lot of people ripped that stuff off, you know? I think of Muddy Waters and Willie Dixon and all those Chess Records guys that were making stuff in the 50s. And then, like, the Beach Boys came along and ripped it off. And then Led Zeppelin, who I love, came along and ripped it off. And there's just sort of a lot of history in this country, specifically with music, of people ripping off other people and not giving credit where it's due.
At the same point, I'll bait you there and say that this country is a melting pot. This is one of the few places that the Choctaw could be introduced to the, are we calling it rhythm and blues of the folks in the Mississippi Delta, plus having the Asian folks and the influences from, those were Chinese folks?
Yeah, I think they're Chinese.
And they specifically harken back to like hundreds of years ago Chinese music. I took that, especially in that scene where all of the different, like they're time traveling with music.
Oh, that was the best cue. I loved that cue, man. That was great.
It worked better for me the second time. The first time I was like, whoa, what are they doing? Like,
it's super jarring, isn't it? Because it's like suddenly you're playing blues music, and then suddenly it's transforming into like kind of that Beastie Boys vibe, like that 80s sort of Rick Rubin hip hop, and then it goes into like kind of the 90s realm, and then suddenly you're in like EDM at some point, and I thought it was fantastic. I loved it.
all of that I liked. Where I bumped, and I told Kirk this the second time we saw it, was when you see the geisha or whatever
Chinese dancer.
Yeah, the Chinese dancer in like the very traditional thing. I was like, wait a second, there you. And I understand that there's instruments that have been around in China for 1,000 years that were then introduced to the United States because, as you see in the movie, the Asians are able to do commerce with the white people and the black people because that's why they have the two stores across the street from each other. And Kirk was like, how can these Asian folks have... Wait, you didn't catch that?
No, I thought they just wanted two businesses so you make double the money.
No, the white people were in one and the black people were in the other because it was still segregation in the 1930s.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I feel like that in particular I didn't necessarily pick up on, but again, that's definitely why I want to see it. I feel like this movie is just one of those, like, you need to watch it a few times because there's so many different things to like sink your teeth into, you know?
Pun intended.
I feel like we kind of nailed what the purpose of the vampires though throughout all the talk. I mean, like, there's a line somewhere early on before they get to the juke joint, like something about they like our music but they don't like us, which sounds like something from another movie, probably a Jordan Peele movie. I'm not saying that as a joke either.
No, there's also Kendrick Lamar. They're not like us.
Yeah,
they not like us.
So it's like they want to, on the surface level, they seem to want the music because it connects them to their friend. Like that breaking down the barrier between time and space is something they crave and connects them with their friends. I think is what the main.
Yeah, he wanted to bring people over.
Something like that. Yeah. But that's on the surface level. On the deeper level, it's like it's the commandeering and the appropriation of music or creativity in general.
Yeah, totally.
That's what I think they're representing.
I'll push back and say, fuck yeah, America, because I want to feel fuck yeah, America. Without America having a capitalist intent with, democratic capitalism, what representative democratic capitalism is the best form of thing to exist because it encourages different peoples to come together and create profit.
Well, maybe, but like, what does that have to do with people?
The Asian people wouldn't be with the black people, wouldn't be with the Native Americans without the existence of what America has become because a bunch of people in England were like, we don't like the way the king's religion is, and now we're gonna go steal this, nation from a bunch of other people, and then ship other people there by,
I mean, if you're saying it gets people to break down their silos and do commerce with people, sure, I guess.
Yes, breaking down silos is very important.
But that's not that. I don't see the connection between that and like we're gonna take your music and use it for our own purposes. That's like the modern day equivalent of like Spotify. It's some fucking dude like Scooter, some fucking asshole.
Scooter's some
like,
fucking asshole?
He's
Scooter Braun?
No, the guy who does Spotify. But like, he never probably written a piece of music in his life, but he's gonna take it and he's gonna be the innovator. Like, I'm gonna innovate and send it like. And
that guy is just like every record label executive that's been clinging off the backs of creative people forever. You know,
so it's like the same thing. It's like that. That was like that. You know, that's the modern day equivalent of like what they're getting at in the movie. I think.
Could you restate the thesis in?
No, so it's like I think what I'm taking away from it right now is that it's the taking of like we want to like take your creative output and we want to capitalize on it. We don't want you. We want to take it for ourselves and act like we're the cool. Just like Spotify these days is like, oh, we're the cool.
The cream rises to the top is my counter.
You should be part of Spotify. You should sign on to be on Spotify. Where we just want your stuff so we can sell it, and this one guy who runs it can get rich.
It gives you easier access to the thing by being a part of it. It's kind of like free speech is the best option, but the byproduct is that you have to accept porn, to quote The West Wing poorly.
My counter is that I don't think people have a choice. Where else are you going to go? Spotify is very popular. You're going to
choose not to listen to music.
See, I think that's slightly true. And I think that that's generally where most people land. But I think that to me, that was the message of the movie, is you don't have to just sit and take it. You know what I mean? It's like, if you don't agree with what is happening, then fight it, you know?
Get out.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you this, okay? With AI music specifically, you know, I saw a couple films at Z-Fest that had AI music in it.
What?
You know?
Yeah, I know a few that.
Yep.
They told me.
I don't know about that.
It said music made with. I assumed it was an AI thing. I don't know what else.
I'm not gonna name any names,
Okay.
but to me,
cut that out, Kirk.
Well, you didn't name anybody, did you?
I said the name of the movie.
but to me, I see that as a challenge.
To beat the AI?
Yeah, because you know what? I'm better than AI. I offer the human element and the human experience, and I'm going to sit down and listen to you talk about your movie and your script, and I'm going to help you make the score that you want. I'm not going to make you plug in a little blip about what you want your score to sound like. I'm going to prove to them why I'm better than AI. And I promise you, most of the people I've worked with, that I've done this process with, they come back to me because I'm worth spending the money on. And I'm not unique in that way. There's a lot of composers out there that are worth spending the money on. So to me, that was the message of the movie, is like, it might feel sometimes like it's like all this stuff's coming at you and you can't fight it and you have nowhere to turn. That's not true. You just got to focus on one thing and fight that one thing, whatever that is.
Horses didn't go away because of the car. They just aren't as prevalent.
Right. Interesting choice, but
that's the thing I always come back to.
I would argue everyone's using a car. And now people are trying to use electric cars a lot more.
Yeah, but they talk about the car in terms of horsepower.
Yeah, that's like what they came up with at the time.
I'm not saying that there isn't a place for AI. You know, I certainly understand that there's aspects to AI that simplify things. That's the whole idea, right? It can make things easier. But I don't think it's okay to make an entire thing AI. And I also don't think it's great to sort of advertise that to sort of new people in the industry that are getting into it, that like, oh, it's okay if you're doing this ethically. I think that sends the wrong message, you know? I think that,
Wait, what do you mean ethically using AI?
Well, various aspects of AI are certainly unethical. I can speak to the AI music stuff. Both Uvio and Suno are in court right now for mining copyrighted data, and record labels are going after them. So all the stuff that they're churning out is based off of copyrighted data. That's not okay. That is not ethical, you know?
But again, America having the laws that you can apply to these things is what makes America great in some ways.
Are they making the laws now, though? I don't think
No. They're applying previous laws to
there's a lot of copyright laws in this country.
That have been around since the 1800s.
Yeah, but that's an argument we had before about like cyberbullying. You kind of have to make the laws now so that you catch it in the future. Because if someone causes someone else to kill themselves with cyberbullying, people should be able to charge for that.
I
Get charged for
disagree.
it.
There because people you can't necessarily pinpoint why someone kills themselves.
Yeah, but what about this
Bad
AI
diet,
argument
they-
though?
was
I mean,
too
I
hot
think
that
with,
day.
so with something like that, with AI specifically, the tech gets ahead of the legislature. That
Yes.
always happens, right? I mean, I remember Y2K. You remember Y2K?
The movie?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, everyone thought that was going to be like the end of everything, right? And it wasn't, like they caught up. They wrote in some stuff about the internet into sort of legislature. They got there, right? I hope we'll get there with AI. I think that if enough people are sort of advocating for doing it right, and correctly, I think we'll get there. But I think a lot more people need to be vocal about it. I think it starts there.
This is the problem with Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning and Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. And I know you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Is that the entity is an AI that is going to supposedly take down the world or something. But then the question is like, what does the AI have to live for if there's no humans anymore to like?
Yeah,
And
right.
so I do think
you
there's
can make the same argument about why people want money.
Yeah.
People probably have enough money by now.
Oh, yeah.
Billionaires have enough money, but they still want more money.
They still want more.
Yeah.
There's never enough.
Yeah.
Kazam. If you have all the money, then no one else has any money. Well, we just released an episode where someone was saying, we have this many award nominations, but it's still not enough. Yes, the insatiableness of humans plus the fallibility is what makes us better than the AI, theoretically.
Well, and as far as the legislation is like, they have to figure out what parts of it, like we have copyright laws, but they haven't figured out yet what's going on with AI and like how it's trained like applies to the copyright laws or vice versa. But it's like, I think it's pretty simple. I mean, it's not across. We talked about this like on my first time back, like in March or whatever. Like, it's not just devaluing someone else's creation. It's not like the car devaluing the horse, the invention of the car devaluing the horse. It's different because no one took the horses and chopped them into little bits and made cars out of them. That's what AI does. That's why it's different. Because you're taking someone else's work and literally, it's not like, oh, some new innovation came along, so now we don't need horses anymore as much because we have cars.
The whole learning element is based off of stuff that
Other people's work.
Yes,
No one took the horses that people, whatever training they did to make the horses do what they wanted to do. I don't know what that fucking is, but like they didn't take all that and grind it down to little pieces and make cars out of it.
Well, they make glue out of horses, and
make
you have
glue-
to glue
yeah.
stuff together that makes the computers that eventually house the AI.
Whatever training you need to do with horses to make them do what you wanted to do to make them take you where you wanted to
The
take them.
equestrian like skills, is that what we're talking about?
That doesn't translate to glue that holds doors onto cars, though. So no, it doesn't. The analogy doesn't work. No, like that's not taking somebody's intellectual property and breaking it down into little bits and then reassembling it into a new product that devalues their product. Like, new technology comes along, like digital cameras versus shooting on film. Obviously, like we've never shot on film. We always shoot digital. But it's not like we took Kodak's hard work and ground it down into little tiny pieces and leverage that to make our digital cameras.
The concept of intellectual property may be going away, just like the sense of self and objective truth.
Well,
and in that universe,
why is it going away though?
Terrible.
Who's making the decision that's going away though?
That intellectual property is going away?
Yes. I'm sure it's a rich person.
Well, I mean,
Like,
To quote one of my favorite movies this year so far, righteousness without power is just an opinion.
I try to have a positive outlook on this stuff.
You practice gratitudes?
Well, I think it's, in an industry like this that takes,
Yeah,
I think it's important to sort of know your value and know your worth. And part of that is, like personal empowerment, whatever that is, But I try and have a more optimistic outlook. I hope that things will catch up, but I look at this more of a challenge. And I think that as artists and creators, everyone should prove You don't like AI? Prove why you're better than AI. You know what I mean? Like, you don't like AI creeping into our art? I don't either. Let's make better stuff without that. Right? Let's make better music without that. We can do those things. We can prove that a lot of this stuff doesn't need to exist in these certain realms, you know?
I go back to your concept of, and this will come out in your interview episode, detuning. Taking what is actually existing in reality and changing it by human manipulation. What, really?
No, I was going to call it you can't call it a callback because technically as a release
you people will find out about you people listening to this right now. Hey, you know what, can I make a wild transition since I think we've hit the zenith of the AI topic? Everyone's giving me consent. You know what AI can't do? Lick pussy. So, what did you guys think about how they described licking pussy in this movie?
Well, how did they describe it?
It's like licking ice cream. Now, what other things could you lick better than ice cream that would be analogous to licking pussy? You don't remember this from the movie?
I don't remember them talking about ice cream.
Yeah, he said when he's in the car with I think it's Smoke and Stack. Yeah. Is Smoke the one that becomes a vampire, or is Stack the one that becomes a vampire? I think it's Stack becomes the vampire, and Smoke has the dead baby with the lady from the TVA. I'm not going to explain that to Nick. When he's talking to Miles, the young gifted boy at music, he's like, yeah, man, so you got to find that little man in the boat, and you got to lick it like it's ice cream, or something like that. I don't know if he says man in the boat, but that exists.
I don't know if I remember that either.
You don't remember the pussy licking conversation?
Well, I certainly noticed like a lot of sort of the sexual references.
They had girl on top sex.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that, like, I thought they were sort of pushing the boundaries with sort of some of the language they were using, and I thought I enjoyed it. Well, I don't know. I remember there was at one point where, God, I'm trying to remember the names of the characters. There was the girl who eventually sleeps with, I think, Stack, and then Stack becomes the vampire.
Oh, Haley
right?
Steinfeld.
Yeah, and she says to him,
from Chicago.
And I remember that, and again, like, that's kind of aggressive and overtly sexual, but again, like, change it up. I dig people that like push the boundaries of some of this stuff.
People have had sex before now.
I know, but I don't think that.
Clearly.
Well, yeah, but like there's still a boundary between real life and like what you expect to see or hear talked about in a movie.
A lot of the early movies were naughty, and like when you watch stuff from like the 20s
Please
and 30s.
edit that out that I said that. I don't want that in there.
Wait, which part?
The quote from the movie.
I mean, the movie is overtly sexual, and vampires in some iterations are sexual, which has come up on the pod more than once now because we talked about Monster Squad, which has a sexy Dracula.
I mean, I liked sort of the sexual undertones. I thought it added sort of again, like, who brings in sexual undertones to a vampire movie?
Well,
like,
vampires have sexual undertones because the rise of vampire movies around the AIDS crisis is a notable thing.
Specifically during the AIDS crisis?
Well, yeah, like... While the nation was grappling with the concept that, oh my gosh, by having certain types of sex that could result in debilitating, sexually transmitted disease.
Well, any type of sex, but maybe they said it was only a certain type of sex.
You would have to have sex with somebody with AIDS, as I understand.
I think you're going to have a hard time making the argument that any other movie has sort of pushed the sexual language as far as this one did in this type of genre.
Disagree, because the whole notion of, and it's in the inverse, is Twilight it's written by a Mormon who was like, oh, sex is getting bit by a vampire, and she can't get bit by the vampire till she marries him. Mormons wrote that, and I'm sorry to keep bringing Mormons up.
I don't
when
think that
Jacob
there was like
imprints
sexual
on her daughter.
language in those movies.
No,
really.
they were all the movies were all PG-13.
Yeah,
There was
I
nothing
fucking the
shocking.
shit out of each other, and in the books, it is clear.
I think you're
You can-
reading into the Twilight movies
fuck
further
it,
than we
PG-13.
did.
The Twilight movies begat 50 Shades of Grey, which shows me that I am not alone in thinking, because like the 50 Shades of Grey series was Twilight fan fiction that then got turned into an entire different series. So like vampires are overtly sexual. I'm not like excited about this. This is just something that has existed
I
in the
don't know
culture.
if I agree with that or not.
It's a bait show. You're supposed to debate me. That's great.
I don't disagree that vampires like often have a sexual like undertone to them, but the language in the movie like exists outside the vampire. Like, way before vampires show up, you got Haley Steinfeld saying, "You stuck your tongue in my coos and then fucked me so hard."
Yeah, they're saying like
You know,
talking like
Like,
dirty to each other, you know?
Yeah.
And again, it's like
it's context.
it's context in the way that they were using it. I haven't noticed in any film that happened, you know? I mean, again, I'm open to...
That people talk that... Well, did you see Nosferatu? Again,
Yeah,
like,
I did.
Remember when Johnny Depp's daughter, Lily Rose Depp, sorry, I thought of her dad's name first, was like writhing with sexual desire for this decrepit, weird Russian guy.
That's his powers, though. He'll make you feel anything.
Yes.
That was different, yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't sort of the same thing.
The Dracula story is all about him attracting these young maidens to him who are unable to overpower their feeling of desire for him.
Not by their choice, though. It's not their choice to find them sexy. He's doing most of the work.
That's what I hope my wife thinks every day is like, I hope she thinks I'm doing most of the work.
I still think it's context. Like, my vocabulary is very broad. It's hard to offend me. I say a lot of words. I've worn out pretty much all the bad words.
He says all the words, the best words.
But like it's a context. So like if you had a movie that's set in like the 1950s and a housewife says shit. Well, I say shit every day, but like that would shock. That's shocking
You're right.
to me
You're
because
right.
the context
The setting in the time period absolutely.
June
played a
Cleaver
part in it.
says, "Oh,
No, but
Absolutely.
this is during the Depression. You realize during times of economic struggle that people become more coarse.
Yeah, but
I guess we'll find out soon,
I'm just guessing here, but I'm guessing in the 30s or whenever this movie takes place. I don't think that they were talking that kind of dirty talk.
Yeah.
Just a guess, you know.
And
Maybe I'm wrong.
like we're all guessing because none of us were alive. But like
Exactly.
it's a pretty common like guess. Like I think most people would not expect to hear 1930s characters saying, "You stuck your tongue in my coos." You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
because like you go back to like the Greek times where like we know from, for instance, Pompeii, that there were places you could go in and pay for sex, and like pay for sex with X, Y, and Z. And if I were to name, you know, Y and Z being children, not a thing that anyone would debate. It is something that happened at different times in history. I think it's gross, but like based on today's mores and context. But I think you go back a little ways and things aren't the way you think they were and are, and they're not as neatly sewn up as they're depicted in costume dramas.
yeah, but what people do like in discrete avenues, like what you're describing, that's different than how they talk in open air.
Yeah.
Sure, but she's only talking to him in that circumstance where she's referring to the sex that they had. You're telling me
like
you
in-
with an intimate partner haven't discussed the things you both already know
At
that
a
you've
train
done
station
intimately?
with 100 people around.
No
even
one's listening.
Yeah, but he tells her to quiet down too, though. He says you shouldn't be saying that.
So clearly there's context to where he's thinking that, and he's worried about that.
Yeah.
When she's thinking like either they're not listening or I don't care or both.
She doesn't care. I think she wants him to get in some kind of trouble. Or, I mean, draw attention to him for sure.
The power structure for women is at this time is also very different. They
Yeah.
can't like they just gotten the right to vote.
Maybe it's nothing to do with what it really was like, because none of us know for sure. But maybe it's just the fact that we haven't seen that era depicted with that type of. Like, did they make a movie actually in the 1930s where they that talk
Again, I
like
go
that?
back to the 1920s and 30s. There were lots of what we would today
I'm talking about
consider to be vulgar movies of like nude women, and you know.
But those were not the mainstream films. Though, were they?
Okay, go look at Back to the Future when he goes back to a certain, I can't remember, 1985.
1955.
No, 1980. At one point, there's a dirty theater in town, and
That's in the
85?
OG 85. The OG 85.
yeah, the OG. So when
The
he's
Falling Apart 85.
Yeah, the Falling Apart 85. So in the 70s and 80s, there were porn theaters you could go to in this fucking country. And like they show that in Taxi Driver. He takes a date to one. She's like, "Why would you take me to a stag movie?"
But
And so
again, that's
there's-
not publicly though. That's private.
You're at a
Business.
theater watching us.
But I think the okay. Let's say for sake of argument, I did agree with you. Okay, let's say for sake of argument, I did. I think what we're getting at least is that in films it hasn't really been used this way.
Lately.
At least not in this context before.
Lately.
I mean, again, tell me some movies that
Interview with a Vampire is a very sexy movie that deals
it
with
doesn't.
a lot.
I just watched that movie within the last year. It does not touch the verbiage or the language that this movie did.
They're like eating children. They're having sex on stage in front of people.
It's not the same thing. It's like this is.
I'm glad it's not the same thing. I agree somewhat with what you're saying. And
There has to be a reason why. We wouldn't just sit here and talk about why it's shocking for no reason.
it's not shocking to any of us. We're all
No, it is shocking. As someone who is vulgar myself, to hear Haley Steinfeld say "coos"
Yes.
is shocking. Why
It's
is
shock
it shocking?
value, dude.
I don't think it's being used for shock value. I'll argue against that.
I mean, I don't think that they put it in there that way for shock value,
Yeah, I don't
but it
either.
comes across as shock value because, I agree. I mean, when those things were said in the movie, I was like, oh,
Have you guys seen Deadwood?
right on.
I have not watched. I
not.
don't think I've watched any of Deadwood.
So Deadwood takes place in South Dakota in the 1870s, and the language, and that's from the guy who made NYPD Blue.
Okay.
And it takes place mostly in a whorehouse, and every other word is fucking cunt. And I remember watching this with my dad in high school, and him being like, there's no fucking way that he didn't say fucking. But yeah, also, adopted father, fuck you. He was like, there's no way this is how they talk. But it is how they talk.
But here's the caveat.
And that's the 1870s, just to be clear.
It's how they're talking. You use examples of him, taxi driver taking her to a porn. That's visual. We're talking
That's
about
1970s versus
but
1870s.
the context here is the language they're using, not that they went to a whorehouse.
Right.
Oh, what does the word vulgar even mean? Like, literally, what does the word vulgar mean? It means of the common class. That's why saying cuss words is considered to be of the common class. It's an iconoclastic, economic way of holding people down because they use certain words. And even though I have the best words and I can use them whenever I want, I don't do that to people. I am of the common class. I'm a blue-collar billionaire at heart. Sorry, I lost the thread there. But no, I genuinely think that people might have said coos, and I believe that character would say coos to that guy. Because here's the other thing. She's having interracial sex. Until 1980s and 1990s, Dr. James Dobson was saying you shouldn't have interracial relations.
Well, technically, isn't she a third or something black in the movie? She says that.
She's like an eighth or something,
I mean,
Well, we already said it's not about whether or not that was really being said for real at the time because we don't fucking know. Even if we watch Deadwood, it might be less shocking if we had watched Deadwood, but we still don't know how accurate Deadwood it was.
Calamity Jane in that show is so cool.
Plus, I think I don't know. I think that the fact that this movie was a really well done movie with a lot of style to it and a lot of quality to it. When there's little bits and pieces like this that kind of stick out like that, it sticks out more. I just watched RoboCop recently, which is a masterpiece in my opinion.
Hell yeah.
It really is. And but there's a lot of stuff in that movie that's total shock value. When they actually kill Murphy, right? It's total blood and gore, totally over the top. I think in context to that movie, it sort of works, but it doesn't have sort of the style and maybe the depth that this movie had. So when this movie does those little things, it's they kind of elevate.
I thought you were smart, and then you talked about naughty things, and it made me go, well, I can't square that you're smart and talk about naughty things.
Well, I think we're used to big budget movies having to
be pussified for the sake of a corporate
sanitize.
structure.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So
right.
you don't when's the last time? What was the last mainstream movie you saw a guy perform
Quentin
oral
Tarantino.
sex on? a woman?
So I say for sure that Saltburn broke
That wasn't
a
mainstream
lot
though.
of-
It didn't
It
didn't do well.
okay, so maybe our definition of mainstream.
I got
is
a
lot
different example,
different,
but continue.
But I thought Saltburn, to me, that was all over the top sort of shock value, which is probably in recent memory. But since that one, probably nothing.
He dances around with his cock out at the end. Barry Keoghan. We just This will have come after Barry Keoghan, who's in Killing of a Sacred Deer. Have you seen that?
Oh, no, I haven't
Nicole
seen that
Kidman is very naked in that movie.
I haven't seen that one.
She was a broad. She's not that naked.
She's
in the
naked
movie.
in a different scene.
Did I miss this movie? I don't remember her being naked in the movie at all.
It doesn't matter. I mean, well, what about Poor Things? Poor Things is very coarse
Yeah, definitely.
It's hard to decide what's main. Is it by budget? Is it by how many people go see it on the back end? I don't know. Like Poor Things, I would have trouble calling Poor Things a mainstream movie. It got mainstream
I've got to count
push, but like I don't think that's a mainstream movie. I think Gone Girl is a mainstream movie, and there was a whole ruckus because Ben Affleck went down on his wife in that movie.
And you see his penis, and you see someone get sliced during sex.
So
Yeah,
like
I don't remember any of those critiques.
And
I must have just been listening to the score.
Oh, it's very good. Okay, well, what about
well, that was David Fincher too. I bet that was probably
That was Trenton Atticus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the mainstream example I would give is from the home box office. It's also known as HBO.
No
Their
free ads.
signature show, The Sopranos. Woke up this morning, got myself a gun. Junior Soprano takes shit because he goes down on women. In that show, which I watched with my parents when I was in high school because I'm a good Christian. So I just that stuck out to me as like, oh, in this manly society, like before I'd ever had sex, it stuck out to me that in the Italian mafiosa machismo, it's inappropriate for the leader of the mafia, that family, to have gone down on women or to be going down on women. So then to hear in this movie, it's like, oh no, we go down on women, it's great, you know. And like the bigger like issue probably at the time was interracial relationships. And you know, you go to Sodom and Gomorrah. Oral sex is considered sodomy.
Here's my counter. I think there's a payoff though, because because Stack is it Stack, right? Who gives him the advice to do that? It's kind of a payoff. Obviously, he's gonna see with this girl. He's gonna do
Because he goes down on her, he gets her
Yeah.
good. Yeah, and she's married.
Yeah, so it's a payoff. It's not like they're doing it, you know, out of
You're on my side that it is relevant to the plot. It's not just them talking dirty to talk dirty like it's some sort of Will Ferrell, Seth Rogen movie.
Well, I didn't say that it wasn't relevant
Yeah,
to the
it's all
plot. I mean, I
relevant
think
to the
I think it depended on what.
I did not expect Pussy Licking to go this far.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't expect it to go this far either. I mean, but there were certainly things that were said, I'm sure, that helped drive the plot, you know. But I guess what I'm saying is when it happened, it stuck out sort of in a interesting way, you know.
I am pro women's pleasure.
Sure, we're not saying we're not by being
not
shocked
saying I'm not.
by this mention of it. We're just saying like that doesn't you don't hear that a lot in mainstream big budget movies.
Yes,
Maybe that's why this movie's good.
It might be. Yeah.
I've been saying it since we started this podcast. I thought that this movie broke a lot of rules and it did things a little bit differently. And this was one of those things, you know? I'm not saying it hadn't been done before or whatever. I'm just saying it kind of stuck out in an interesting way.
As a fan of South Park, I don't agree with pushing boundaries just to push boundaries.
Okay.
I don't think this movie was pushing boundaries just to push any boundary. I truly thought that it was all part of the same theme, and I'm interested in figuring out what that was.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
South Park, the South Park guys in the 2000s would say, like, we go to these Hollywood parties and say we're George W. Bush fans just to, like, break boundaries. And they tried to say the opposite of what is cool to be, you know, their own selves.
I mean, okay, my counter argument to that is that sometimes when you break rules, it doesn't work out, man. You know,
Fuck
and I think that like sometimes you have to break rules to sort of uncover new things that are cool and like worth diving into, right? And so I think that like I don't think that breaking rules you should just break rules to break rules, but I do believe in the ethos that if someone tells you this is the way to do something, I question that. I think we all should necessarily, you know, go, why do you make things that way? Why does it have to be this way? I was in a scoring class at Berkeley, and, you know, the teacher was very much in this sort of John Williams is the greatest in the Beth ethos, which I, you know, as you know, I probably loved that, right? I mean, I
You're
was
a big John Williams fan.
yeah, right.
Old
So I was
Johnny
immediately
Bills.
like talking to the teacher after class and like dropping out of the class and
Wait, really?
Well, yeah, because I don't believe in this ethos that there's one right way to do everything. That's not correct.
Yeah.
We make better art when we explore the things we haven't explored sometimes.
Here's the
you know?
counter to that is that it still is worthwhile learning how to do something
Yes.
correctly because
Yes,
there's a
totally. Totally.
The customer is always right in matters of taste.
Totally.
The customer is not right if they say, well, the car should only have 3 wheels and they should be square. No, the customer's wrong.
Totally. I agree with that. You should take the time to learn to do things right. And I certainly have tried to. You know, I dropped that class and I picked up another one, right? I believe in learning to do things the right way, but I also believe in breaking some of those rules sometimes. It's like, just because it's a rule does not mean it's the standard and it always has to be done. There are many ways to get to sort of the same goal sometimes, you know?
I think like there are certain things that are objectively right and wrong. Like if, I mean, like even sometimes someone wants to have a shot out of focus. I've been watching like late night 90s music videos playing, and sometimes what they were doing, they were just going out of focus for no reason. Like whatever. Like you do that, that's fine. If you want it in focus, here's what you have to do. Like that's how a lens works. There's no other way to get the shot in focus than to do this and make it in focus. But then you get to explore outside of that and say, if I want it out of focus, I can do that. And like I think those boxes, if they tell you gotta stay in this box, like look outside the box. You look outside the box and explore and see what's outside the box. But don't just do every little thing outside the box just because it's outside the box. Like find something of value outside the box.
Yeah, certainly.
That seems like
I think I agree with that, and I don't think it's one way or the other, you know. But I know for me, like, you know, being in the Suzuki Violin Academy, let's just give as an example, right? Like they teach you it's black and white, and I don't believe in that. I didn't believe in it then. Like there's more gray with some of this stuff. And I think that's where it's like, I think of the younger person that feels like they have to sort of follow all the rules because that's what they've always been told to do. But when it comes to art, that's not the case. It's your art. You can make that call, whether you think that's the right move or not, you know? Like you shouldn't have to subscribe to someone else's idea of what's right and wrong in making art. If it's yours, you can do whatever you want to do with it.
Only you can do what you can do.
Only you can prevent
Exactly.
wildfires.
Thank you, Smokey the Bear. We blew way past time, but I still wanted to hit Kirk up with how he was so racist against the Asian people with Southern accents.
I wasn't racist. I just was taken aback by how, I don't want to call it deep, but how Southern their accent was. That took me way off guard.
They're assimilating into the culture they're in
Yeah.
because they're doing commerce with the folks there, both on the black and white side of the street.
Do you guys all watch subtitles with your movies at
I
home?
love
tried
watching subtitles. I want to know how to spell every
Yes.
word that is said.
I feel like, and I know that with Sinners it was very much in context in the time, but I had some trouble at times really sort of understanding what was being said. My wife kept saying to me, like, I really wish we had subtitles.
I truly did not have this problem. My brother-in-law Keyshawn made the argument that his recently to me on Mother's Day because his family is from the Mississippi Delta. He grew up in Detroit. That's why I argued for Detroit pizza and whatever segment that was.
Call forward, yeah.
He said something that was grammatically incorrect. He was like, "But that's AAF rules," and I was like, "How dare you?" Because I can't argue against that. And so for me, no. But I love subtitles for spelling because it's kind of like what Nick is saying with like having something in focus. There's a way a word is spelled so that you know what word you mean.
unfortunately sometimes I find subtitles aren't accurate. Like
Oh, for sure.
So it's like,
Especially with some
older.
of the older movies, it's like it's like they'll say the line and then it'll take like 10 seconds for the actual words to come out in your subtitles, you know?
that, the delay, but
Like
also
the delay.
sometimes I find they abbreviate them.
Yeah.
Or they just like don't transcribe them properly. They're probably like I use it happens pretty much automatically. Everything I edit like gets transcribed now automatically, and then it gives me a I have a text window, and it makes editing easier if I have like a 40-minute long interview. But like, it's not always accurate.
Yeah,
like,
it's because they probably have Chat GBT writing.
yeah, or something
now.
similar. And like, so the especially stuff that's been transcribed more recently, they're probably relying on something like that, and it's not always. So I don't like. I prefer subtitles over dubbing if it's a different language. So of course on Netflix they have a bunch of different.
We should start a running list of like the movies that have the wrong subtitles, and like try and find out who actually did it, because it was probably just some like hungover intern.
Yeah.
They were like, "Hey, Bobby, you got to do the subtitles for this movie.
Yeah,
make
that's
sure to
exactly
double
what-
check your work." And he's like, "Oh."
It's like slight rephrasing always bothers me. My wife and I have to shut off subtitles on like when we're watching SNL Live or even on the Peacock rerun, and then inverse of that on Hacks on HBO Max, because that's what it's getting rebranded to. Again,
They're going back to HBO Max.
yeah, there's a meme right now of three
innovative.
Supermans pointing at each other, going Max, HBO Now, and HBO Max.
Wait, they're actually going back to HBO now?
HBO Max.
Of course they are.
But that is what it originally. The streaming originally was HBO.
HBO Max. And then they went to just Max,
Like
which
2
I
years
was
ago.
a little annoyed about. I mean, I only say that because, I mean, HBO worked really hard to sort of build up a brand of what they represent.
Home box office. This is what you would watch at the movies if you could, but it's at your home, and they're saying P words and C words and F
Yeah,
words.
Right.
And
it's when I got to see RoboCop, man, when I
Hell
was
yeah.
younger, you know? Like, to
Lethal
me, it's
Weapon
the
for
edge.
me.
It's the edgier stuff, right? So I thought when they took away that, it was like, okay, well, what are you now, you know?
Do any of you watch Hacks? I have to turn off the subtitles for Hacks because I read the jokes before they say them, and I find the timing to be so like either on SNL it's too slow and on Hacks it's too fast for my reading. So it's what a weird, like, stupid thing.
First world problem to have.
No, I am so aware that, like, fuck me, you know. I'm excited. Like, I was going to open one of these segments by explaining to Jeff that the point of the podcast is to be non-iconoclastic in that, yeah, I'll refer to things that I happen to know from my personal life and education that I'm lucky to have. You have Suzuki education. I had to reach out to a childhood friend to try.
I'm impressed, man.
But I also don't give a shit and want to talk about pussy licking for 20 minutes because I think that everyone gets that. And I want to reach the broadest group of people because that's what makes movies good, is that it's for everyone. For us, by us, for everyone. FUBU, I can't do it.
Yeah, it's
Well, I mean, and you said earlier, too, it was like, you know, we kind of forget sometimes that our goal here is to entertain people, right? That's really the goal of movies, is to be entertained. And I, as all of us have been a part of making movies, I think sometimes it's easy to forget that sometimes, you know? Like, we all sort of get sucked up into the artistic aspect of things or the little nitty-gritty things, and it's like, hang on, how do we make people enjoy themselves, you know?
To correct Tom Cruise in Rain Man, it's pronounced autistic. He writes artistic. I hand it to you, my brother.
Yeah.
In Rain Man, he's like, you wrote artistic. Did you mean autistic? 273 toothpicks, you know. Dustin Hoffman.
I need to watch that movie again. It's been a hot minute.
1989. Not autistic of me to remember that.
What? I don't know if that's a good place to end it. I don't know if that's such a deep cut, almost feels like.
Oh no, Tom Cruise, you played a vampire once.
We're going to end the show talking about Rain Man.
Yeah.
It might have been 283 toothpicks because 17 were still in the box.
Well, Jeff, we're going to have your interview segment next. Could you give us a tease on what it's about?
I'm always looking for an opportunity to sort of talk more about my work and the stuff that I'm doing. So yeah, I think that give it a listen, and I think you'll enjoy hearing what Kyle and you guys ask me questions about.
Kyle, Kirk, Nick, the Farx brothers.
Have a good night. Thank you for listening. For more on JK Productions, find us on Instagram at JK Productions Team and on Facebook, JK Productions MN.